What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets and Rob. How is everybody doing? Before I get started talking about a blockbuster trade that could be coming for our New York Mets, don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. All right, guys. So we know the Mets and David Stearns is in buy mode. They're trying to make this team better. We know what this team needs, but what are they going to get? Are they going to get a big name, a big arm starting pitcher at the deadline? Are they going to get a big arm in the bullpen? I do think they're going to make two more trades in the rotation, at least one in the rotation and one in the bullpen. But I do believe one big move is going to happen. And I think it's going to happen in the rotation, even though my personal opinion, I'd like to go for the big arm in the bullpen like a Tanner Scott, but I think they're going to go after a controllable starter that has a big arm that can be at the top of this rotation, and it comes from the Detroit Tigers. Now, before we get to the trade proposal here, this proposal is for the same Mets fans that are prospect huggers but also want to win. And newsflash, prospect huggers, you can't win that way. It's very hard to do it. So if you're going to hug these prospects, guess what's going to happen? You got to take a bad contract. That's how it's going to work when you want to save and protect and not trade any prospects in your farm system. Because when you do that, you have to take bad contracts to make your team better going for a playoff spot. So for the prospect huggers and for the Mets fans that believe that they want to win, but not really want to win they want to win, but not really give up the prospects. Well, you cannot do both. It's very hard to do both without taking on a bad contract. So, as I say this, here is a trade proposal between the Mets and the Tigers that should appease the prospect huggers. And the reason why it should, because the Mets are taking on a bad contract. Now, you're going to have a controllable arm here coming from the Tigers. So you're going to have to give up at least one top 10 prospect and a lower level prospect in this deal, but you're also taking on a bad contract. And it looks like this, guys. And you know what? If you're going to be mad about this type of deal and you're a prospect hugger, then stop watching the Mets and don't even bother watching because you're not trying to win this season. That is the way. This is where we are right now, ladies and gentlemen. You want to win in 2024, or do you want to kind of go for it, but not really? And then when they lose, complain that they lost. You can't have it both ways. So here is the trade proposal between the Mets and the Tigers. Here, this. The New York Mets get Tariq Skubal and Javier Baez with taking on his contract for Brett Beatty, the number 7 prospect in the Mets system, Colin Holt, and the 28th overall prospect in the Mets system, Ramon Gomez, the right-handed pitcher. So that is the type of deal that the prospect huggers want to happen. This is the type of trade that is going to have to happen if you're not willing to give up major prospects. And when I talk about major prospects, I'm talking about the Drew Gilberts of the world, the Acuñas, the Jet Williams, those type of prospects, the Gilberts, the Cliffords, those type of guys, Tidwells, those guys, Vasels, like that. Those are the guys you're going to have to give up if you want a top-of-the-line starter. So if you want to hold on to the prospects, well, here's the trade for you, ladies and gentlemen. Javier Baez has to come in this deal. You got to take on that bad contract. But the benefit of taking on that bad contract is that now you have a Francisco Lindor who is the leader of this team, who is now a New York Met. When Javier Baez was traded to the Mets the first time, Lindor was still trying to find his footing as a New York Met. He wasn't really beloved by fans. He wasn't really involved much with the fan base, with the Mets. He was still trying to find his footing. Now, I don't think you're going to see a thumbs down issue or any issue. Lindor is going to put Javier Baez in their place. And then people can talk about where you're going to play Javier Baez. Well, at the moment, McNeil can play the outfield. Jose Iglesias can platoon around the infield, play some third, play some short, play some second, all over the place. DH occasionally. He can play in a lot of places. I think Javier Baez can play second base. Him and Lindor up the middle will be perfectly fine. Javier Baez will be rejuvenated, coming back to play with his friend. He want to prove that trade deadline when they got Baez the first time isn't a mistake. there's going to be a lot of good things to come out of it. I know a lot of people don't want to see Javier Baez, but if you don't want to give up the big prospects that we all are talking about, you got to take on the bad contract. And look, Skubal has years left on his contract. You got control over this kid. The Mets are going to have to pay for a big-time starting pitcher in the offseason anyway. Why not get a controllable arm? You don't have to pay. That is one less contract you have to give in the offseason. And we'll look at it right here, guys, when it comes to their contracts. And it's not easy to look at, but Javier Baez got 4 more years on his contract, including this year. So, he's got 25, 26, 27, and the rest of this year. So it's kind of 3.5 years of a deal left of $25 million. Now, he's going to get him until the age 34 years old, but I still think as Javier Baez is here with a more confident and leader Francisco Lindor, I think Javier Baez will be a plus for at least a year or two. And, we can talk about, DFAing him later in a year, in 2 years or something like that. Or maybe you can actually flip Javier Baez somehow, some way, if you're going to do that. But I do think this is the type of trade you're going to have to make if you're a prospect hugger. This is the problem that you're going to fall into. And I think it's a good move because you get a controllable arm in Skubal. He's 27 years old. He's ARB eligible. You get him for 2 more years, including this year, which is 2.5 years. And you don't have to pay for a big-time starting pitcher at the top of your rotation. Skubal can be that guy. That is the give and take you have to have if you're a prospect hugger. And if you want to win and actually want to win, you got to make a little bit of a sacrifice and taking on a bad contract. And a lot of prospect huggers are going to say no about this deal. Well, then what do you want the Mets to do? Because they're either going to have to give up top prospects or they got to take on bad contracts. Well, here is the prospect hugger's dream, taking on a bad contract without giving up big-time prospects that are well-known that could be a part of this team either some point in this year or next year or 2026. That's where we are as a fan base. And that's where we are with the New York Mets in a quote-unquote transition year. This is where we are. This is the year where nobody really thought we were going to be in this type of position. Plans change. I'm not saying give up 7 out of your top 10 prospects to get what you need to go for it, but you got to give to get. And in my opinion, guys, if you really want to win, then you have to take on a bad contract if you're a prospect hugger. Now, we could go crazy here and take Javier Baez out of this deal and just get Skubal. Well, it's probably going to cost you probably 1 or 2 top prospects in your top 5 and probably another one in your top 15. That's what it's going to take. If you're willing to do that, which I am, then take Javier Baez out of the deal. And I'll give you 2 top 5 prospects and a top 15 prospect for Skubal, and we have a deal. But I know the prospect huggers are not going to do that. So I'm asking you, prospect huggers, this video is for you. If you're willing to take on a bad contract to Javier Baez and get Skubal in the process. Now, you do give a number 7 overall prospect, a guy who's a shortstop, lower levels in the minors, probably ain't going to be here for at least 3 years, maybe 4. That's if he pans out, and there's nowhere to play him, especially if you got third base prospects, second base prospects. You got a ton of infield prospects. So Colin Oak is kind of one of those kids that are kind of left on the side over here as our top 10 prospect. So you're giving up a number 7 prospect that isn't really going to be a part of this team, definitely for the future. He's behind Acuna, behind Mauricio, behind Vientos. So where are you playing this kid? So you put him in a deal. You give him a just under 30th ranked prospect in Ramon Gomez, and you make that deal. You're making this deal for Skubal. This also saves you money in the process of paying a big-time starter next year in this offseason when you're going to have to get a top-line starting pitcher. You're not going to have to worry about that with Skubal for the next couple of years. And you'll have Senga back healthy. So you got another solid number. You got an ace in Skubal. You got Senga, your number 2. And now you can work around. Maybe signing Severino to a 2-3 year deal, putting him on an extension. There's your 3rd starter. So now you only got to worry about the 4th and 5th starter. And you can use those young kids in your farm system to maybe be a 4th or 5th starter and maybe bring in a veteran just in case if one don't work out. That's what you have to do, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're willing to do a deal that involves a bad contract, this is what it's going to look like. And it's frustrating for fans that are not prospect huggers, including myself. This is a deal I wouldn't like to do. I don't want to take on a bad contract in Javier Baez, and now you got to work around who's going to play where. But this is the type of deal you have to get if you want a top-line rotation guy that has control. This is what happens. So I ask once again, prospect huggers, are you willing to do that deal? Because if not, then you don't want the Mets to make any big deal to get better. Do you want them to make marginal moves that don't really make you better and it makes you happy that they try to do something? That's not trying to win. That's trying to half-ass a deadline like 2022 that we're afraid to give up prospects. So this is the deal that's got to happen if you're willing to take on a bad contract. Now, I'm not willing to do that. I might bite the bullet because I love Scooble, and I don't really care about the Beatty and the prospects that we just gave up. But you got controllable for 3 more years, a top-line starter that you do not have to pay for $200+ million this offseason in free agency. That's why this deal could be a possibility. Young arm, controllable arm, take on a bad contract to Javier Baez. And you got a leader in Lindor that will control Javier Baez. It's a totally different Lindor than it was a couple of years ago when we first got Baez. If you want this deal to get done, let me know in the comments, guys. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button if you enjoy my content. Want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Mets fans, prospect huggers, let me know in the comments, would you do this deal? Because you got to give to get. If you don't want to give to get quality top-line starter, then you have to take on a bad contract like Javier Baez. With that said, guys, I want to thank you for watching. And as always, Mets fans, let's go Mets.